Even when I got into real estate, I was still working as an MA. I used to, like, my first property when I bought it, I got it because of working as an MA. I got into real estate and I was doing real estate full time and I was working full time as an MA, right? So I was working, I would leave work, go show properties. I would, during lunch, be on searches. I would do whatever I can, whatever time I had, it would be focused into that.
Welcome back to Young Money Mindset, hosted by Luke Correggia and Robbie Holdcross. From the ground up, where we talk about mindset, real estate, the hustle, and everything to help you achieve your dreams.
Welcome back to Young Money Mindset. We are super excited. Get ready to get inspired. Today we have Matthew Khalil here in studio. He's someone that we've done about 6 deals with here in the last 5 to 6 months with him. And he's well known within the real estate industry here in Arizona. So we're looking forward to kind of learning from him today and hopefully providing some value to you guys out there. So why don't you kick us off, Matt? Fill us in. How did you start on your journey when it comes to real estate investing, and kind of what's your day-to-day look like?
Cool, let's talk about it. Just quick recap, 6 deals. I have 2 partners on some of those deals as well. So got to shout them out, Luke and Jake, all right?
Yeah.
So, hey, started in real estate in 2015, okay? Indirectly. My parents just had bought their primary, and after they bought the primary, my head was just running. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, buying houses. I've always played Monopoly as a kid, so I was like, okay, everything's coming together, right? And then I went up to my dad a few months after he bought the primary, and then I told him, why don't you buy another house? And then he was like, what are you talking about, man?
How old were you?
15 years old.
15?
Do it again.
I was like, why don't you buy another one? Like, why do you have to stop at one house, right? And then he kind of was like, what are you thinking about? Like, how are you, like, what's going on, right? So then he thinks about it for a few months, like, and doesn't show it, right? And then out of nowhere, he calls the agent to help him buy his house. And he was like, why don't we look at some other rental properties? And I was like, oh, that's what they're called. I was like, all right, cool. So he ended up buying a townhouse in Mesa, like 6 months later. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I helped him actually rent it. So I was like, let me try and figure this out. So I listed on Craigslist, Facebook, everything, right? And then I get him a tenant in a week. And I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And I'm 15 years old, right? So I don't even know what I'm talking about. I don't know what a lease agreement is. I literally Googled lease agreement, Arizona, and went to Google Images, screenshotted a lease. I swear it was a one-page lease. I screenshotted it, and it had like all the text that was like when you don't pay for like the contract, it's like whatever,
like
right?
the watermark
Got the watermarks on it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I use it anyways. I screenshot it, and then I'm literally typing up the same exact contract because I didn't want to pay for it. I was like, let's save the money, right? Then I bring the tenants over to our primary, and then we sign the lease. They give the deposit. And then after that, I look at my dad. I was like, dude, this is actually pretty easy, right? Like, it's not too bad. So that was how my journey started into real estate. So then after I saw him buy the second house, I was like, okay, you know what? I want to buy a house. Like, what is it going to take for me to buy a house? So even at 15, I started talking to lenders, and I was like, hey, like,
You're probably like a favorite call for a lender, right? A lender is like a 15-year-old kid reaching out.
They never took me serious. There was one lender that took me serious. His name is Jason Cox with Fairway, right? I'll never forget. It was in Chandler, and then he took the time and explained everything to me. And then he was like, when you turn 18, you just have to have credit, and you can get approved for a loan. I was like, okay, there has to be more to this. Like, and then he was like, you have to have a job, yada, yada, yada. I was like, well, I don't have 2 years of working history at the same job at 18, by the time I turned 18, right? So I ended up going to EVIT, all right? It was like an institutional school. Became a medical assistant, went to EVIT for 2 years, junior and senior year of high school to become an MA. And then as soon as I graduated, Jason was able to use the 2 years of schooling as work history. So I qualified for a loan as soon as I turned 18. And then my parents had me as an authorized user on their credit card, so I got credit. So then as soon as I turned 18 and they pulled my credit, I was like, okay, perfect. I have a score. And then, I bought a primary at 18. and ended up renting it out a few months later, and then just started the snowball effect.
Man, that's incredible. How did you have that mindset? Like, that's the first place I go is like, I talk to, a lot of people, and like even some of my cousins are kind of in that age of like 14 to 16. And I try to talk to them over Thanksgiving regarding like, how do we get you guys set up buying rentals and like, that whole journey. And they just weren't into it. So why do you think you were into it at such a young age? Was it something you saw? I mean, obviously you saw your dad do it, so
there's that. But I mean, I think it was just super different, just because my upbringing was not, Matthew, you want this? Let's grab it, right? You want, like, I was never like spoiled as a kid, right? Thank God I didn't live a terrible lifestyle, right? It wasn't. I don't want to make it sound like terrible, right? But at the same time, like, I was hustling since I was like 10 years old. I would find something, sell it, fix something, sell it. So like my dad, he had a partner in California that they would buy big boxes from Jerusalem of just crosses and like rosaries and stuff like that and sell at Catholic churches. Okay.
So you've always had that entrepreneurial kind of type mindset. And that's what we see a lot, especially like right now in business. I mean, a lot of people are the ones that maybe weren't as entrepreneurial or kind of getting out of the real estate world. So I feel like a lot of people that at a young age, have that entrepreneurial type mindset. Those are the guys that typically go on to start businesses. So fast forward, you start buying rentals at 18, which is awesome. I mean, anyone out there watching, like, should definitely be looking up to you at 18. I don't know a lot of people that have purchased rentals. I'm serious.
A lot of people don't realize, too, that you can use that 2 years of school and college as your work history,
Yeah.
And people just don't realize that you can leverage that,
Yeah, that's huge. And that's what got you on this journey of real estate investing. So fast forward, you're 18, you buy your first store, fast forward to like, within a last year or two, like where are you at today and kind of what's happened since then?
So, yeah, 23 now, just turned 23, bought a handful of other rentals. I'm at roughly 12 units, I think it is. I kind of took a pause for a year and a half back in 21, just because the market was so like hot that my focus is, I mean, looking back at it as when we were talking about before the pod, what I messed up on was not buying in that time, right? Just because I know rates were low and you can't predict it, right? Yeah. But at the same time, in 2021, I took a pause. Didn't buy a thing. I just was working on active income, right? Just turn and burn. And I was like, oh man, if I were to have bought 2 or 3, they would outperform the stuff that I'm buying now or the stuff that I bought previously, right? Yeah. So, I'm not really big on timing the market, right? I'm a long-term hold type of guy. I don't care if I'm underwater on some stuff, right? But like, it's like, I don't care that, okay, this is worth 500 today. It may be worth 450 in 6 months from now. But I know if I held it for 15 years, it's going to be worth like 700, right? It always outworks itself, right? So
No, that's really cool because, I mean, I think a lot of people get hung up on real estate investing and they're like, what about the market? What if the market goes down? So I think it's a good refresher for people in the audience to hear that, you don't have to always have a large equity position in a property. Typically, when you purchase a property, you're not going to step into a shit ton of equity unless you're buying it wholesale from me, like Matt does.
Absolutely.
Then they're deep, right?
Yeah, then he's deep on it. But a lot of stuff, in all seriousness, you're going to be a you're going to have very little to no equity. And then obviously once you factor in the costs of actually selling the property as well, the 4%, 6%, you back that out of it. Typically you're going to be underwater for a little bit. So it is good to stay focused in on that long-term mindset. One thing I think a lot about though is you never want to be a forced seller, Matt. You never want to be in a position where you have some negative equity and you don't manage your finances well, life event happens, something comes up where you're a forced seller at the not opportune time. So how are you positioning yourself? Because I know that's on a lot of people's mind right now, especially with the way the market is. How are you positioning financially right now?
So I won't buy rentals just to buy rentals, right? There are, like I said, some rentals that are underwater, but I'm offsetting it by other rentals that are, doing well, right? And there is an equity position in them. I kind of look at a portfolio as a whole, right? So it's like, okay, total value X, leverage is X. This is my equity position, right? Because once you hit a certain number, then it's like, okay, you could go portfolio loan your stuff, right? They're not really hung up on that one house. They're more so like, okay, well, he's giving us these 7 other houses that have 50% equity. Yeah, this one's at 90%. Cool. Let's just bundle them all together, and the portfolio still performs well, right?
Yeah.
But my position right now is like my mindset right now when I underwrite a deal or I'm looking at any sort of real estate or anything like that is multiple exit strategies right now. So it's like if I'm buying something as a rental, for example, if I'm buying a BRRRR, I want to make sure I underwrite it properly to BRRRR it. If I can't BRRRR it, can I flip it, right? And if I am going to underwrite on a flip, as crazy as it sounds, my appraisals on BRRRRs always come in higher than what I could end up selling the property for, right?
Yeah.
Just because of the way the market is, right? So my flip number, I have to underwrite it and make sure that I'm at least good there. I'm good on my BRRRR numbers. And then other than that, rentals. I know there's a lot of people out there, and I'm just not throwing shade at anybody, but like when people tell me, oh, I'm going to buy this rental, it's going to negative cash flow for 3 years, but it's only like $200 a month. And I'm like, what? Like, I get it. The tax advantages, all that stuff, right? I'm aware of all that stuff, right? But like me personally, I would not put myself in the position where it's like I'm just burning $300 a month so I can go and do a cost seg or whatever and depreciate it, and then, I made money indirectly. And it's like you did, but you didn't, because you could just wait for a better deal. You know what I mean? Or something that at least breaking you even or something of that nature, right? So I'm avoiding those deals, okay?
Yeah, and that's something I've done recently because I did buy one that was a negative. I had negative cash flow. I was like, fuck, every month I see that payment come out and the rent come in. I'm like, God damn it. But I agree with you because I think at the end of the day, I look at it as a portfolio, right? And the ones that are, $800 a month cash flow, if you're eating $150 on the other one, you can sleep well at night knowing that. I guess where I go is the long-term appreciation on some of those. So like if you're able to buy a deal, let's say that is a break even, would you do something that's a break even that has a great rate that you can maybe do like, a 4 to 6 year hold? Do you do any of the balloons and stuff like that? Yeah, like a sub 2 with like a 5-year balloon. Would you do something like that? Because I try to avoid the balloons. I think balloons are for parties, not real estate. I tell sellers that all the time, when they're like, oh, we need a 5-year balloon. I'm like,
that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Balloon, to answer your question, I'll avoid everything with a 5-year balloon unless I'm buying it at a no-brainer price, that there is equity, right? So like then it makes sense, right? But on a sub 2 deal, even if it's breaking even, I still wouldn't buy. Even put the balloon aside, right? Say it's amortized on 30 years and you're just writing that seller's loan, right? If it's still a break even, but my entry is like 30, 40 grand, I'm not into it. Yeah. But this is just personal preference, right? I'm with you on the portfolio and the big picture, right? The only reason why I would do something like that is if it's in a great location. Right? If it's in a great location and I know that this area is going to grow, don't throw me somewhere into like Casa Grande or like Eloy or Maricopa and expect me to do that. No way in hell.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I've noticed a lot of those deals in those surrounding areas, man, have been really challenging to move recently. And it used to be a year ago, everything was.
There's a ton of inventory out in those areas too now. It's just saturated with the new builds and that,
Yeah, I think the new builds are crushing a lot of that too.
It's terrible because you can't beat the rates in that. But kind of to piggyback off of what you said, if you're not going, the creative finance route, obviously to acquire 12 properties in 5 years, you're not just doing FHA or conventional loans. So have you built a relationship with a bank? Obviously they're looking at your portfolio, but how do you obviously the first one, you did a traditional home buyer, but how are you going about acquiring that many properties and not doing the, hey, let me buy every 2 years, avoid the capital, you know what I mean? Like the generic way to do it. How are you acquiring so many in such a short time?
No, I gotcha. So the 12 units I have, they're not 12 separate properties, right? So I have a few multifamilies, right? So these are units. Right now, total like parcel numbers, you could say, are 8, I think, 8 or 9, something like that. One's on a seller finance. That's what I was gonna say. So seller finance, a true seller finance, no mortgage, I will do all day. I love those.
It's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
And I won't touch anything still on that if it's less than 10-year balloon. I would give myself 10 years just because then the market could reheal itself. At least that's my philosophy.
I take the same philosophy. I do a minimum. If I am going to do
Yeah.
the balloon, it's got to be
10 years is plenty of time.
Yeah.
You know,
10-year
you should
balloon.
outpace
No,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like you by then you could either, sell it, wrap it, do whatever you need to do in order to get out of it. I would like to think, right? So, but to answer your question, I started talking to portfolio lenders recently just to like get the conversation started with them. Cuz that Fannie Freddie only gives you 10 loans, right? I've heard people saying that they start causing you problems at 8, right? Where they'll start, pricing will just get less attractive, right? But yeah, I started talking to a portfolio lender where essentially he would just portfolio, say 5 properties in one portfolio. The lowest amount of properties he could put in a portfolio is 5. He'd go up to 10. For each portfolio. So that's something that I'm looking into. Hopefully here in the near future, I'll have more details on it just because I haven't pulled, the trigger on it quite yet. Just because, again, the hard part is I have some good rates on the other stuff that I'm holding. So if I go portfolio all these ones together at a high rate, it's like, oh my gosh, like what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But like early on, like let's say you're out there listening to the pod and maybe you own one house and you're like, man, I want to buy my other, my second door. Do you, I think where Robbie was going is like, are you using conventional loans? Or from my understanding, I think you're burrowing into a lot of these deals, right? So like after that first one you bought at 18, how did you acquire the second door?
So first one, 18, conventional. Second one, conventional as well. So I just did primary.
Did you go 20%? Oh, primary.
5.
What was your
Okay.
time period between the first and your second?
6 months.
6 months.
So 10% down on the first one, 5% down on the other one. And keep in mind, my first one, I wasn't an agent yet. My second one helped me out because I took that 3% co-broke, 5% down, 2%, and they paid for all my closing costs. So essentially, I was 2% into this thing. My third one, 20% down. So I used to be like, that's what I was going to get into. I used to be the guy that was like, dude, I'm just an investor. Like, so what? Like, I saved up my money. I'm going to blow it all on one rental. If I knew what I knew back in 2020, because that was my last one I ever did that mistake on was 2020. I'm not upset about it. It's one of my favorite properties, but it was just very eye-opening. You know what I mean? It was like, if I knew what I knew today, I did not need to bury just shy of 90 grand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, into one
Exactly.
door, yeah.
So, but all of mine are conventional. Okay. Every single one. I don't have one DSCR loan. Everything is Fannie Freddie for right now. A few properties I partnered with my parents on. So Mulberry, I bought from Luke. My parents and I partnered on that one. They put the loan in their name. We're all on title. Just so I could start offsetting the loans, right? Smart, so I was like, okay, you know what? Let's do this one together. You do the loan. I'll take the property down, buy it from me, do whatever you need to do. And then that loan's in their name. And we just wrapped up one yesterday. That refinance just closed. And that one is under my parents' name as well. So I'm very blessed in the aspect of like my parents are more than willing to help out and wherever they can. So that definitely helps. So like to offset some of the loans, my parents put them in their name.
That's huge. And if you're out there listening and you're thinking, man, I need all this money. I need 90 grand, right, to buy my first rental. Like where Matt was going with that is, you don't need 20% down to buy rental properties. I think it's one of the biggest mistakes early investors make is they think, oh, I need to save up or I need 2 years under my belt at this current address and I need to go out and buy it as a primary. So is there certain strategies you're using? I know we've looked at a lot of seller financing. I know we had a conversation about 2 months ago, actually, about some interest-only loans and stuff like that. So why don't you share, like, to the audience out there, like, if you're thinking about buying a rental, but you only have, let's say, 30 grand, is there a
Perfect.
Is there a possibility
number.
That is the number.
to buy a rental for 30?
Absolutely. So There was a deal that I was negotiating. I think we talked about it. The one in Chandler, stucco tile, nice house. That house was listed on the MLS for $555,000. Okay, pretty much ARV. Right, if anything, a little bit over what it was worth. Right, seller would only carry. She did not want to sell it traditionally, just because she didn't want to deal with the capital gains. Right, and she was very sophisticated. Like she knew what she was doing. So I'm talking to her and we're kind of going back and forth. We ended up negotiating a 5% down. Okay. Keep in mind, I'm getting paid 2.5% commission on this, right? So we negotiated 5% down, 3% interest only, 10-year balloon, interest, my interest payment will recast anytime principal payment is made. So it's not done like if I make an extra $100 today, it's recasting that principal balance after that $100 has been paid now. So everything is just, I don't know. I thought it was cool. So I'm recasting the rate every single time I make a principal payment. That one's on a 10-year balloon, and that might total all in. And this is if you're a realtor watching. This is the number for a realtor. But my total all in to that was $12,000.
Wow.
$15,000.
That's incredible.
So you heard it here, guys. You don't need $90,000 to buy a rental. It's one of probably the biggest myths we see out there when it comes to real estate investing, when it comes to long-term rentals. But why don't you explain what a recast means? Because people out there in the audience, even agents, I talk to a lot of real estate agents. They're like, "What's a recast?" So why don't you break down the recast? Just a quick 101 overview.
So recast is essentially if, the easiest way for me to kind of explain it is going to be if I'm paying 10% on $100, right? That is $10, right? If I make a principal payment of $10 additional, so now my loan amount is $90 and I'm paying 10% on that, now my payment is $9. So it's constantly going down as I'm making an additional payment on top of my minimum payment of that interest only.
Yeah, I love it. And the way I break it down to agents is very similar. It's like, hey, if let's say I'm paying you 5% on $100,000 and I call you tomorrow and make a $10,000 principal payment, now I'd only be paying 5% on $90,000. So it's going to reduce that interest I'm paying monthly. Not to mention your client could get a call, and say, hey, guess what? You got a check for $10,000 or, So there is benefits on both ends, especially for the investor and then also the person holding the note too. I mean, opportune time, maybe they get some extra funds and they can go redeploy. Especially right now, are you running into sellers that you're having a harder time getting a 3-4% note because bonds and money mutual market accounts are paying 4%. Some savings accounts right now are paying 4 or 5%. So,
yes and no. So definitely, it's always hard to get a 3% rate, right? I don't want to make it sound like it's easier said than done, right? I think it all falls back to purchase price because at the end of the day, it's all an equation, right? If you take, Jared Vidal's? Yeah. Jared Vidal, stud of a guy. If you need seller finance, talk to him, right? He, essentially, you could take out interest rate, you could take out everything out of the equation, right? And just negotiate, for example, a payment you want to make. Forget about interest rates, right? The rate is just part of, at the end of the day, when I look at a seller finance deal, I really don't care about purchase price, obviously within reason, right? And I don't care about the interest rate. I look at what is my down payment and what is my debt service and what does this property rent for? If there's a return that is good to be made there, then it's a deal to me, right? So that's my biggest thing. It is of course challenging, because the people out there that just don't understand the market, you're trying to pitch a 3% interest rate. They're like, you're out of your mind. You can't even get that or anywhere near that in the market. Why do you think I'm going to give it to you, right? But then it's if you inflate the purchase price and then give me a 3% rate, it just sounds better to me, but I'm paying it in interest because I'm paying you more for your house, right? Yeah. So essentially, it's like me getting a 4.5% or 5% interest rate, but on 50, 60 grand lower of a purchase price, right? So that's the best way to look at it. I think it all falls back down to payment, terms, and rents, and obviously the cash that you're going to bring to the table.
I love that because too many people get hung up on purchase price, or they get hung up on, oh, you know what, I got to be at a 3% instead of a 4% when they're not looking at the total equation. I like that saying of looking at it as an equation and looking at the full picture, because we do see quite a bit, especially even on the listing side. You know, we see agents especially that list properties that they know are high, you know, in purchase price, but then they want to ask for an 8% rate and 150,000 down, and it's like, you got to give me something, right? If it's going to be your price, it's got to be our terms, or vice versa. So I think that's awesome. How, kind of switching gears a little bit and diving more into kind of what challenges you faced and what challenges you're currently facing. What would you say is the biggest challenge right now for you and your partners in your guys' business?
Stay motivated.
That's real.
That's universal.
No.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
very
I mean, like,
universal.
for example, it's like, I'm not saying that I'm lazy or that I don't want to make it or, you know, keep myself busy, right? But like, it's like staying motivated in the sense of like, at the end of the day, you could take calculated risk, right? You know, with whatever industry you're in, okay? But the biggest thing is going to be fighting your own demons inside of you, right? So if you're underwriting this deal, for example, today, and it's going to spit out making 20 grand, right? You may be losing 20 grand by the time you're done, because this market's moving quick, right? Whatever like the puppet says, everybody goes, right? So it's like, that's like the unfortunate thing. So you have to be very, very conservative, in my opinion, or like, you know, just assess the risk.
Yeah, just very calculated. I think right now is being so, I guess, because I mean, I struggle with that right now too, especially being in the wholesale business. And I know some wholesalers are going to be watching this. It's like we come across so many deals. I look at so many damn deals that it's honestly been a challenge of mine to be like, I can't buy this. Like, it's hard for me to be like, you know, because I see it, I want it, you know. But it all comes back down to taking calculated risks, and that is a challenge of mine. So it sounds like you guys, yeah, are looking at it kind of in a similar way of like, man, how do I really figure out, you know, what deals to actually take down, what deals to take to the finish line? Can you break down a BRRRR for us? Because I know a lot of people out there have heard of BRRRR. You know, they hear buy, renovate, refinance, or buy, repair, rent, refi. So why don't you break down, I don't know if you have like a ballpark or like an example you can give us of a real deal.
Yeah.
Love to break that down.
Yeah, so one of my latest ones, I ended up flipping it because I'll break that down later. But this was a deal that I bought in Mesa. I bought it for $160,000. I put $60,000 into it. Okay.
Was it one I sold you or no? Okay.
This one's off his
Looks like,
Okay.
damn, I'm in
I was like, gosh, that was
kept
one I
it.
should have bought. Damn it. I should
One
have
that
took
got
risk
away.
on that.
No, we're actually in the middle of the reno in Serene right
Oh,
now.
God, good
so
luck.
we'll show you what it looks like afterwards. But 160 purchase price, 60 into it for reno. That's 220 all in. Holding costs, call it 10 grand on that low dollar amount. So you're into it for 230. That property appraised for 300 grand. Okay. After it appraised for 304, but 304, 25% leverage on that. So we ended up getting around 229,000 on loan amount. So we literally were like pretty much a wash, right? Because the holding cost wasn't 10, it was a little bit less, but that was like a complete wash. We ended up listing that property for sale and for rent at the same time, just because that house had a subfloor on it, stuff like that. Like the demographic of people that were going to live there, it was just going to be a nightmare for maintenance. So we're like, hey, if we could sell it, great. If not, we'll keep it, right? And we already closed on the loan and we've already bird it, right? But then now we've listed it for rent and for sale at the same time. Then, yeah, that one we ended up selling. But essentially what it would be, that debt service on that one was $1,575. Very low taxes, very low insurance. And rent, it was listed for $19.95, and my phone was nonstop. But we ended up making the decision of selling it.
Getting it sold.
Yeah.
So if you guys are following that, basically Matt's able to purchase a deal for essentially no money, right? I mean, by the time you refi it out, your goal with the BRRRR is to basically recoup as much money as possible out of it. And sometimes you're going to leave money tied into the deal as well. You know, sometimes it gets trapped into the deal. and then you got to sit back and wait until your next exit. But that's interesting. I really like the fact, and something that I've been thinking a lot about recently is trying to get more into the burrs, because we do flips, and I always think of it as kind of a worst case scenario, like the nightmare story. I think that goes on in a lot of rehabbers' minds is like, what if this property doesn't sell? Like when I flip it.
Solid exit though, if nothing else, you know.
Yeah, in a worst case scenario, you guys always have that burr model to fall back onto and refi out if you can't get it sold.
So 2 things. This could piggyback on when we were talking about 30 grand for a rental. Even if you have to trap money on a burr, but you're trapping less than 20% that you would initially went and have done on, like, because like Fannie Freddie, minimum down on investment stuff, 15% with mortgage insurance. 20% to eliminate that. So 20% is usually the rule of thumb. If I bought that house that we were talking about on the burr at 300,000 or 20% down, that's 60 grand being buried just to have another rental. I just did this for no money out of pocket. If I did end up keeping it, right, or even if I trapped and the appraisal came in low, 275, whatever, I'm trapping 20 grand. It's still less than 60.
Yeah, it's still less than 60, and that's what's going to allow you guys to scale. I hear a lot of times people are like, man, I just feel stuck. I got 1 door, I got 2 doors, I got 5 doors, whatever that number is for you. They just feel stuck in that. So, like, I think a burr would be a great model to really try to hit scale and start doing more deals. What do you have, Robbie? Anything in terms of, like, the real estate side? I know we're kind of coming from more of a traditional background in real estate.
So most of what I do is all traditional. So I'm curious. I'm always curious, you know, obviously when we have people on, kind of what else you do. So I know as far as just like earned income, I mean, obviously a rental property is going to give you some passive and things like that. But what else are you doing to get out and earn dollars to go and make these moves? Because a lot of the people listening, I mean, they're really not, you know, they don't have a lot of the leverage or the resources, you know, that some of us are fortunate to have. So coming from a ground level, how are you building up to maybe get the funds for those first couple?
So for the past few months hasn't been well, but this is what I was doing prior to that. Flips are great. You know, flips, they're always nice. But again, just because of the market, there's flips that we underwrote to make X, ended up losing, right? So like either way, flipping is a good one. That is something we do. Wholesales, we'll do them. If we have the right opportunity, we will do them. We never daisy chain deals. If we commit with Luke, hey, Luke, we are taking this down, we are taking it down. If we end up selling it afterwards because we had a good opportunity, whatever, then that may be a case, right? But anytime I commit to a deal, I'm taking it down. You're going to see me on the HUD, right?
And just one quick side note on that, and it's not, you know, and just to clear the record, like, I think Matt's strategy and the way he goes about that is super important. The biggest thing is not that you're going to daisy chain the deal, but just being transparent with the wholesaler you're buying from. If you are going to daisy chain it, don't say you're going to close it and like, oh, my name's going to be on the HUD.
Yeah.
And then there's fucking 5 assignments after you. Like, just be transparent about it at least. Sure. But go ahead.
And a lot of people in this industry are happy for other people to make money.
100%.
Yeah,
Like, they're never like, oh, they're looking in everyone's pocket. Unless you're the guy that's like trying to like nickel and dime Luke because you could go move it for 20 grand when it's like you could have bought it at his price and still moved it for 15. Right? That's like, okay, dude, come on, relax. Yeah. But so wholesales, flips, the rental stuff. Other than that, that's pretty much the main stuff. I do traditional stuff. My business did start on the traditional side. I started commercial real estate, but then my church and the people around me are the ones that helped me like really thrive in real estate when I first got into it.
Yeah.
Thrive, no pun intended, right?
Thanks for the shout out.
But you know, so traditional real estate has always been good for me. For the past few months, it's just been slow just because of rates, obviously. But there will be a traditional deal every here and there where I'll help a family friend or somebody get into a house. So that definitely helps. But yeah, there's a lot of, you know.
And just on that, because like I think a lot of people listening, it's like wholesale, retail, and fix and flips are kind of like your highest earned income activities.
No?
Yes and no.
Why is that? Rent or
Time? Or
it's just time. So it's like, for example, a flip. In all honesty, flips, I'm not a big fan of. I do them and I enjoy seeing the before and afters. But I'm not a big fan of like, okay, this is going to be 90-day money from now, 120-day money from now. You know what I mean? And it's like, and this is on hopes and obviously calculated risk in order to make that money, right? But you know, I love the traditional side where it's like, I'm going to help this seller sell their house. I'm going to help this buyer get into a house. I have no money at risk.
Yeah.
Right.
It is time, which is money, whatever, but it's essentially no risk, right? So.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. There is something to be said about the no risk. You know, when I represent someone, I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, it's not my earnest money going. it's like, I'm not tying up 10 grand.
It's a
but,
lot easier to write that contract and everything else.
Yeah. So, I mean, but like, at least for me, like, I know flip is definitely one of the highest earning income opportunities I have at my fingertips, and then wholesale, then retail. But like, the way I always try to translate it is like, you could take your flip money, and as long as you're able to position yourself with that, I mean, even one flip, what would you say on average you guys make on a flip? Like on average, I know some are going to be, you know, super duper winners, some are going to be losers. 45 to 50 is kind of the number. Yeah. So think about it out there. If you could do one of those, you know, two of those a year, I mean,
Them, right?
Yes.
On top of everything else. But like you said, that 90 days too, you know, real estate markets can change in 90 days. Like big time, you know, and like you said, you can get caught out there sometimes too. And we know plenty of people that have, you know. But yeah, you have to, obviously, like you said, kind of diversify and make sure you're underwriting your deals and pick what's working.
It's just, and I like to bring up risk because I used to be the guy when I first started into this industry. I was like, dude, these guys are making crazy money, like, good for them. And it was like kind of like whoa, right? Until I started doing it myself, and I'm like, all right, guys, everybody over there needs to shut up, all right?
Yeah.
Because I don't sleep at night.
yeah.
I'm over here stressing 24/7, right? When you have money out or whatever, right? It's like
100%.
there has to be a return on the risk you're taking, right? And hopefully it's a good return, right? So it's like that's like kind of the biggest thing. So
No,
When you take the risk is when you make the better money, typically, you know.
for sure.
Yeah, and you're going to get paid on the risk, but I think at the end of the day, too, it really boils down to if you're able to do flipping on a small level. Like, I see a lot of guys want to go and scale it and do 50 or 100, and I think you guys do quite a few of them. But, like, I guess it just comes back down to, like, what risk are you comfortable with taking? And that's always going to change. One misconception I hear a lot of is, man, I don't have 150. I know we keep going back to this I don't have mentality, but we hear it so much out there, and I want this podcast to provide value to someone that's out there that's like, man, I don't maybe have the best resources available, but I do have a shit ton of time that I can invest. So I think when it comes to flipping, like, go partner with someone that is actively flipping. In exchange for, you know, you not having money, you can bring them the deal, right? And say, hey, here's the deal. Let's go ahead and partner on the flip. And obviously you're going to take more. You have risk, you have money, you have, you know, everything going into it. But then that way you can learn and get a good mentor that can walk you through it. Because I think if you really learn flipping the right way, I think it can be a huge thing that serves you and your family really for, I don't ever plan on stop flipping. I mean, I'm sure ebbs and flows and, you know, we'll do more, we'll do less, but I think it's one of those deals where, like, you prove it to yourself that it's real, and then you're like, shit, man, this is going to be a good opportunity long term.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, again, it goes back to the equation. As long as you buy right, it's always going to work out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything always sells. It's always at the price.
Tell us what, if you don't mind us asking, Matt, what's the most amount of money you've made in a year? Gross. Not talking net. I'm just saying gross. Just. You can give us a range, or you don't have to.
Anywhere from $1 to.
Yeah.
I would say 300.
300. Okay. So, and I think that's something too. Like, if you're out there looking at people on Instagram or social media, and you think, man, these guys, you know, have it made. It's like when you look at the top line number, let's call
That's not net.
Yeah, exactly. Let's call it 100, 200, 300. It's like, what are you walking away with at the end of the day? Because, I mean, just piggybacking off what we were talking about on the flip side, I'm learning right now that taxes are
Gains are
real
real.
pain in the ass. Yeah.
It's different when they subtract it at the end of the year.
Yeah. So, and then just learning, you know, and learning and what one thing I should have done better is surround myself with better accountants, better tax people. I feel like we all kind of start off at a level where we're not making a whole lot of money, so we just kind of go to, hey, you're a buddy's friend's mom, you're a CPA, like, can you do my books? But we never really, progress to that next level. So that's one thing I've done is go back through, hire a new accountant.
Dude, they're worth a lot of money too.
They're
worth good money.
Oh, yeah.
And it ties into the taking calculated risks,
Oh,
because
sure.
I was never able to really, I heard, take calculated risk, understand your numbers, be able to underwrite deals, and I understood all of that, but I was still at the end of the night like, fuck, what am I missing? Like, what is it? And I was missing the accountant side of like, hey, this is P&L, this is what we brought in, this is what we love, and just really looking at it from an overview, and then like even like a chart of accounts. I never knew what a chart of accounts was. I never knew that you could look at a balance sheet and all the things that go into the accounting side. What would you say on the personal development side? Is there anything, are you a big believer in personal development? Are you currently reading any books? Are you listening to any good podcasts right now?
My biggest thing is, this honestly started like a week ago. I want to get closer to church again. Since I was a kid, I've always believed in God, Christian, you know what I mean? And I've, like, for the past week, 2 weeks, I just was like, I need to get closer to God. It's terrible as it sounds, it's like I always pray when I need something, and then I always, like, kind of forget when I don't, So it's like I just want it to be more consistent. That's, like, a big goal of mine, because I do find a lot of peace once I'm going to church, praying more often.
Yeah,
Yep.
not just when you need it, Matt.
Exactly. So that's like a big goal of mine. Other than that, of course, personal development. I'm always like trying to get on the podcast, the books. I'm not a big book reader.
Are you like the ice bath at 5 a.m.?
Dude, I love cold plunges,
Crack
but
that
not 5
mentality.
a.m.
Okay,
Not
I
5
thought you were
a.m.
like that
No.
morning routine.
More like 5:30.
No. Typically I'll do them at night in the evening, but I love cold plunges. Like my ideal setup at my house, once I find a primary, let me know if you come across any.
Yeah.
But cold plunge, sauna, steam room, kind of like a little circuit. That
need
would
that.
be the goal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I was just telling my fiance, I was like, hey, we're going to do a little addition or a little garage out back and trick that out. And that's exactly what I was saying.
Dude.
Cold plunge, sauna.
Steam shower, need
It's
all
super
that.
underrated, man.
It is.
Super underrated.
Well, I think recently too. We've seen. It feels like everyone's doing the ice baths now. It's just like
We can buy them for $100 now.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
can
little
you?
blow up ones. Yeah,
Oh,
they're
I
like
saw that.
$109 or something.
Yeah,
it's
they're not the guys on Instagram posting
Yeah.
the plunge ones. That's
Yeah.
like $7,000.
that big white tub.
Yeah,
I'm not
the
paying
white-
10 grand for this thing.
Have you seen
Where am I
that
gonna
one?
put that, dude? Yeah.
But to piggyback on like the Instagram, I don't know why it just clicked with me, but in the beginning of the pod, we were talking about why entrepreneurs, like how you really became an entrepreneur, right? And how it starts like when you're young and you're just like a hustler, right? I think the hard part about today's time, and again, this is just my personal opinion, is just I feel like people think of real estate as a trend. It's that new cool thing. A lot of people are doing it. It's an easy way to make money. I want to go become a realtor, whatever, yada, yada. It's like, dude, none of that is accurate. You know what I mean? It's like, can you make quick money? Absolutely. You're going to put the time and the effort into it, right, in order to do it. So I think that's like a big thing for people to understand as well. Whether you're coming into this industry or you just got into it, it's like, it's not as easy as everybody makes it seem.
It's not. And go into real estate with the mindset of I'm making $0 in the first 6 months I'm doing business, and I'm going to work harder than I'm currently working at my job. So if you're working 40 hours a week, say I'm going to work 80 hours a week, and I'm going to make $0 for the first 6 months.
That's your time investment. But like you said, that's the time investment. If you don't have resources, leverage your time and let it leverage and start buying properties like you did.
But I think it starts before that, because I talk to a lot of people that are like, Luke, I don't have 6 months. I have bills to pay. I can't wait 6 months. And that's why it starts prior to you even getting into real estate. You have to be positioning yourself. If you don't have resources, you don't have anyone you can lean on, you can slowly start making that transition, slowly start saving your dollars up until one day you're like, man, you wake up and you're like, I might have 3 months worth of bills.
Yeah. I think that's what you need. I think 3 months is a good number to get into it. Yeah.
I've heard numbers all over the place, but to be honest, and I don't want to sound like I don't have a heart or something, but it's all BS at the end of the day, right? It's like I don't like to cut people slack where it's like I got bills to pay. If you want it bad enough, you're gonna figure out a way to make it work. I remember when I wanted just to save up money, I would be working my Denny shift till midnight before I go to school the next day just to save money for my first car, right? Irrelevant. It has nothing to do with real estate, right? But like I wanted my car, so I worked hard to get it, right? Even when I got into real estate, I was still working as an MA. I used to, like, my first property when I bought it, I got it because of working as an MA. I got into real estate and I was doing real estate full time and I was working full time as an MA, right? So I was working, I would leave work, go show properties. I would, during lunch, be on searches. I would do whatever I can, whatever time I had, it would be focused into that.
Do you think that's something you're born with, or do you think that's something you learned, or that you is part of your character development? Because I'm getting ready to have a baby in July, and I was thinking, like, I don't, I see the guys, some like super successful people, and their kids end up doing nothing, and then vice versa. Some really poor families are, the next Bill Gates. So it's like, is that born or is that taught?
I think it starts at birth, but it's not. You're not born with it, if that makes sense. So it's not taught indirect. Like, I can't teach you to go be a hustler. I can't teach you to work hard. I can't do that, right? As bad as it sounds, I need to figure out a way to make you uncomfortable to the position that you are pushed to do something uncomfortable, which is work hard, put in the time, the effort, and whatever you need to do, just because you know that I'm not going to be your crutch, right? So, like, what was good about my parents when I was growing up, and that what instilled like the mentality of like I want to make money, I want to figure out a way, right? It's like my parents always got us what we needed, right? Never what I wanted, right? Needed was like, okay, you got your shoes, you got your one pair of shoes for 6 months, next semester or whatever, you get a new pair of shoes, right? All my friends had PS3s. Dad, I want a PS3. Nope, not happening. Dude, I put signs to mow people's lawns. I kid you not, I did everything, right? So that's what I, like, if my parents were like, yeah, here's the PS3, here's the PSP, here is your scooter, here's this, here's that, then of course, what the hell? Why would I want to do anything, right? I'm going to be too busy playing with these toys because I never worked for them, right? That's the big thing. When I talk to Ramonda, God willing, one day when we have kids, it's like, that's the type of, parenting I'm going to do, for my child. I will not, whether I am chilling on Mummy Mountain or whatever, right? Like, it does not matter, right? They're not, whatever they want, they're not going to get, right? Because I don't want them to grow up being like that person that doesn't value anything, right? I know a lot of people that have kids that don't value crap, right? Because, oh, I want this. Yeah, here you go, son. Just shut up. Here, take this, take this. And then they've grown to be nothing, right?
Yeah.
You can typically tell when you're around those people too that don't have the uncoachables. It's so obvious when you're in a room with someone that has been handed everything. Yeah. They don't have that uncoachable mindset,
Yeah.
You can't teach that. You can teach people how to sell real estate and how to flip a house and things like that, but the hunger, that's within,
Oh, for sure. Cuz like my goals is not, yes, it's a dollar amount. Yes, I would love to go and make X amount of money, right? Of course. But my goals are beyond that, in the sense of like, I want to be able to take care of my parents. I want to, retire them. I want to, take care of the people around me. I want to do a good deed for this foundation. I want to do, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily I want to go live in a $5 million house. I want to drive the Wraith, and I want to be able to eat at Mastro's every night. That's not like what I'm doing my day to day for, right? So I think it all falls back as well as like your purpose. There's a lot of people that just don't quite really understand what their purpose is, right? When I make money, it's not going all straight into my pocket, which indirectly it is, but it's not, right? Like, I have plans with this money to go do X, Y, and Z with this that will fuel me to be like, I want to go make more money in order to go do these things, right? So that's a big thing as well. Like, and I feel like a lot of that stuff cannot be taught. I can't teach you to, hey, you make 10 grand, give half of it to, X, Y, and Z, and then give half of it here. You know what I mean? I can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do it. And I think one thing that really stuck out to me is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, and really, I think as a kid develops, I think there's something to be said about, like you were saying, just giving them what they need, but not necessarily what they want. So there is that desire to, try to get out there and a little adversity, I guess, too, right? Because like I think it's good to face adversity at a young age, and as long as it's not like super super traumatic or something,
For
like
sure. Like I remember the times where my friends had things that I did not have, and it
hurt you.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
At the time, I was like,
absolutely.
dude, like why am I
yeah,
different
why
than them,
me?
right?
Why does my
But then that's the stuff that helped me be like, dude, I'm glad. I could say with full confidence now, like, I am super glad and thankful for going through all that because I did not end up like that.
But in the moment, you don't have that. But it's so weird looking back on it. And like one thing I've been doing a lot is like when like we found out Katrina was pregnant, it was like thank you so much. Like you start thinking about all the things your parents did and what you think they did right and what you think they did wrong. And it brings up a lot of memories from your childhood that I haven't thought about forever. And it's a lot of stuff like that. Like, I remember being at this buddy's house or doing this, and it's
Triggered a lot of thoughts. Just that statement, some different stuff. That's like, oh, maybe that is why I'm the way I am.
exactly. Yeah.
Because I did have to work for the shit I wanted.
Yeah.
It was never.
So that's
I
why it
always
can't
had
be
what
taught.
I needed.
That's
but-
where, like, that's essentially why I feel like you can't get taught how to have this mindset, right? I think certain people are blessed with that mindset, and it's like take it and run with it, use it to its full capabilities, right?
Yeah. When I'm super stressed, I always think to myself, I'm like, man, I'm just grateful that I have a good mindset. I got a good mind, right? Because we think like this, right? And I think there's a lot of people don't, right? And they don't have that. And it's just like, no matter what happens in life with deals or family or whatever, it's like, man, I'm just grateful I got a good mindset because you can't buy that. You can't, that's got to be developed over time. And I think it starts at an early age.
I want to ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Because I was just talking to Jake about this, okay? Yeah. Do you guys ever, like, ever since you got into the industry and became an entrepreneur and stuff like that, right? There's obviously year one, you had goals, right? Say your goal was to make X amount of dollars, right? And then year two was X amount of dollars, right? Year three is X amount of dollars, right? So it's like, okay, you've accomplished most of your goals, right? But do you ever look back and you're like, I'm still not doing enough?
Every day.
Every day, yeah.
It's like, oh, like even though I hit what I said I wanted to hit, like, dude, this sucks. Like, I
There's
need
no
more.
end. It's
It's like a drug,
yeah.
dude.
You always
is like a
feel
drug.
like you're not doing it enough. Even if you smash your goal, it's still like, well, maybe I should have set a higher goal because I probably didn't do enough,
Well, well, not to cut you off, but like even like what I think about too is like even if I'm doing everything I feel like I can be doing, it's like what other piece am I missing? Am I not educating? Am I not doing this? It's like even if it's outside of work, there's always something else too that you could be doing. I think about that. Sometimes I drive by a fast food. Let me ask you guys a question on this. Sometimes I drive by a fast food place, or not fast food, but just anywhere, and I think, man, how much easier would my life be if I just fucking had a 9 to 5, bro? Like if I could just show up, dude, and clock in at 9 a.m., be like, hey, what am I doing today, boss? You're doing this, this, and this. All right, sounds good. Like I think about that sometimes. Like that is a thought that
couldn't
crosses
even
my mind.
imagine. Like I can't even place myself there now.
But I know I would be so unhappy. I know I would be so unhappy, but it's that constant thinking and stress.
I have a similar thing. Like when I drive around places like that, I'm like, how are they happy or okay doing this?
Yeah, you go through a
know what I mean?
Starbucks drive-through and you're like,
Because it's like,
you're
what
still
the
here?
hell? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's like, and again, I think it's like blessings, that we get to see this stuff, that it's like, it humbles you, you know what I mean? And it makes you like, proud or just not like happy with what you have, right? Yeah, just because like there's a lot of times where stuff doesn't go as planned and whatever, and then I'm over here thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I need to like stop complaining because like I'm like I would never, me personally, if you were to ask me 3 years ago, where do you think you'd be? I would never think doing what I'm doing today or here, doing anything or like reach the amount of success that I've had now. Never at all.
That's refreshing to hear because I feel like I talked to some people that are like, man, I always knew I was going to be successful,
fuck
But
no.
it's refreshing, and I think it's refreshing for our audience to understand, like, even if you have those doubts and you don't know if you're going to, have any success, like, that's a normal thing, right? We all kind of have that insecurity or that doubt.
Yeah.
It's important too, though, to look at the gap behind you too, because the gap in front of you is infinite. So you're always going to feel less. But if you look at how far you've come, You know, it's easier to be grateful in that sense, which I think I lose track of a lot of times, is being grateful for how far we've come in the last few years, realistically.
Yeah, no, I love that. I get, yeah, no, that's great to really kind of focus in on how far, because I mean, even these podcasts, I go back through and listen and
Dude, I need to. I haven't in a long time.
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's good to kind of it's a journal of understanding where your mindset was at, what you were thinking about, who you were involved with. So, kind of in conclusion, and just kind of tying everything, bringing it back here to real estate. What do you think about this market? I know it's on everyone's mind right now. I know we've been talking about it a lot as a team. What do you think? Do you have any predictions you want to throw out there for 24, or what do you think rates are going to do?
My opinion is, I think prices, I don't see them coming down a whole lot. I just don't see it, right? Here, at least in Maricopa County, and the main cities, right? Outskirts, they're outskirts. So it's like, the demand over there is obviously slowed down since there's more opportunity here in the big
Metro
cities,
area,
right?
yeah.
So I want to say that prices are going to pretty much stick where they're at. I think we're going to have like a stagnation, or what is it called? Stagflation.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's just stagnant, right? Where it's not going to go up, it's not going to come down. I could see stuff start moving because like I'm on the MLS every single day. The amount of units available goes down every single day. Does not go up. So that's definitely a good sign. Rates, I think they're going to start coming down. A lot of people don't know this. I'm a mortgage lender as well. So yeah, I think rates are going to start coming down. But yeah, I think it's going to be a solid year next year. I think it's just going to be more predictable, other than the roller coaster we were in this year, where like if you bought in January of this year, then by July, it was like, okay, price, did it come down? Did it stay the same? Like it was just so uncertain. You didn't know what was going to happen, right? And I feel like a lot of people pulled back because like rates did reach like a peak, right, of like just shy of 8% or 8% for primary. So that's like it's tough. Like right now, I'm seeing people get quoted like 6s, So like that's pretty reassuring to see. So yeah, I think rates kind of come down a little bit, and then kind of just I think it's gonna be just a healthy market, just because of demand. Demand's still there, and inventory not as much as it needs to be.
It's still not balanced. Yeah. I mean, we need to be at 20, 21. But.
Well, I always go back to the fact that there's so much low interest rate debt out there. I don't think we've ever seen a period where we've had an all-time low of a 2 followed by a sharp increase to 8. So I think there's, with all of that low interest rate debt out there, I'm hoping, people are going to hang tight, and it's going to help with our inventory, which ultimately I think is what's going to save this market long term. Is like,
without a doubt.
I think if a lot of these low interest rate folks out there started selling, I think we might start seeing a lot more inventory.
Any of them are going to start selling.
No,
I don't see
it either. Just because like they could rent their house, they
Yeah.
could do whatever they need to do. If they need to leave, they could throw a tenant cash flow beautifully.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening. And the other thing that I keep an eye on is like what's going up, right? Vertically. Everything is freaking apartments. Rent. Like everything is apartments. So like it makes me believe that single family homes are going to be way more valuable than they ever have been, just because they're not building as many as they used to here in the cities, right? Every corner is a damn apartment complex that's owned by a fund or whatever, right? That is just going to keep them and rent them, right? It's going to drive rents up, but if you could get your hands on single family stuff right now that's affordable, me personally, that's the play. Hold on to that stuff, just because I feel like there is going to be a lot of value in that asset class. Just seeing what's going vertical.
Yeah, and then really, I mean, especially too, folks that maybe aren't from Arizona. I mean, we're seeing a lot of builder, or not a lot of builders, but one builder in particular that I can think of,
Like interest rates?
Doing the build to rent model, where they're building entire
crazy.
single family homes. Have you seen that out by the 303?
Dude, full neighborhoods.
No, not 303, but there is 2 communities going up in Gilbert that are built to rent.
Are there really? I didn't know they were on the east. I thought they were all doing them on the west side, but
So there is 2 that are, and these are small single family, right? But Greenfield and Ray
Oh, I've seen those on the
Yep,
yeah. They
that
look over the
corner.
highway or look over the road there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those are all built to rent. And then Sam's Club off of Gilbert Road and Baseline.
Yeah.
Right there, there's a lot. They're already up. Those are all built to rent as well. Same builder, I believe, because it's like this same style.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, in that, but that's a great observation because I wasn't even thinking of it like that. Is with all the multifamily they're building as well, and then all the some of the single family even being for rent, not for sale.
Oh, yeah.
What does that do to single family long term?
Yeah,
I think that's huge. What else do we not know about you, Matt? Before we let you get going, man, we appreciate you coming on today.
Appreciate you guys.
I never knew you were a lender. What the hell? Hooking up with a loan?
Nobody really knows that. I honestly got it just so I could get better rates on burrs. I kid you not. I kid you not.
He's an agent. He's a wholesaler, and he's a lender.
Taking the commission.
But no, man, that's about it. Just.
Any words of advice? Anything you want to give to someone out there, maybe starting off or thinking about?
Keep going. Keep going.
I love it.
Just keep going. But yeah.
I love
If
it,
you guys
man.
need anything, just always feel free to reach out.
Yeah, reach out to Matt.
Appreciate you coming on, brother.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming in studio. Reach out to Matt. He's got ton of. He's a wealth of knowledge. So make sure you guys, DM him. Reach out and see if he's willing to help you look at a deal or kind of share his advice or his mindset on deals. I've done it. I think there's a lot of value in having people that you can call that you trust and bounce ideas off of. So make sure you guys leverage that. And I hope you guys have a great holiday. Take care, guys.
Deuces.